Senator George Mitchell again.
So I knew not to get my hopes up yesterday, and I don't feel let down today. There are, in the phase 1, unredacted versions of previously redacted documents. So what they're doing is first giving a little bit of context catch-up. The stuff we already had, let's see more. Boom. Okay, there's names. There's people. We're seeing the circles dude was running in. I have yet to see any reason to feel let down or expect to be let down in any of the things they've been doing since inauguration and the transfer of power. Everything that has been done, the necessary survival entitlements and actual legitimate life-saving aid has never been cut. Things that are found to be questionable are paused, and things that are outright wrong are cut. And just as an aside, the amount of money they're going to find being wasted and stolen needs to be, instead of distributed to the people, it needs to be used to pay off the principal, not the interest, the principal of the deficit, the budget deficit, whatever that you hear people talk about. It's a very complicated thing at that level, but there are different types of debt. And of the money that we borrow externally, if we're going to print money, there's 2 things that can happen. Well, there's 3. But 2 things that are possible that might happen that would not be destructive. The third thing is utterly destructive. That third thing being sending that money out to people to spend and use in the economy. Yeah, everybody could use it. I certainly could. But the thing is if I was getting a $5,000 check, by the time it gets to me, it's actually only going to get about $4,000 worth of mileage. And by the time I get it into place and use it and find the things that need done without just splurging on something, take care of necessary things or whatever, I'm going to get about $3,500 value out of that supposed $5,000 because of the hyperinflation caused by putting all of that out into the public for the economy. You have to correct inflation. You can't stimulate the economy with money until you have corrected inflation. And even then you may not need to. So, for example, if there's enough money to send everyone $5,000, instead, what you could do is take that and put it against either the interest or the principal or both of what we've borrowed from, for example, China or Saudi Arabia or any other country that has loaned us money, that we pay off those debts. And in doing so, that increases the value of the United States currency, because that international trust that is kind of like hopes and dreams and prayers and whatever is what's backing the dollar. It's a type of trust in the fact that the United States currency will not collapse and that the United States will not renege on its agreements. So if, instead of continually borrowing more, like raising the credit limit and maxing it out and raising the credit limit and maxing it out, that's bad credit. So instead what you do is you chip away and break down. And if you get a windfall, you just hurl it kamehameha straight at that debt and cut down at what you owe until the interest in what you owe is much more manageable. If you are simultaneously preventing all that waste, fraud, and abuse everywhere else in the government, making sure that 300-year-old non-existent people's names aren't still getting a check that, God forbid, somebody be cashing, that's a freaking life prison sentence, I think, plus paying it back. All that money, okay, I told you about the one thing that's bad that you can't do, and that's give it to everybody. So there's 2 things. You can pay off the principal on the deficit, etc. That may not really reduce the inflation, but it will improve United States currency position in the global economy because we'll be paying off that debt. Other countries no longer have that to hold over us if we pay it off. The third thing is to somehow find a way to just destroy or delete the excess currency without spending it on anything. That, I believe, is the actual solution, but I'm not sure that anybody would ever get behind that. The reason I say that is inflation is caused by an excess of shares of a finite amount of value. That is what happens when you print money out of nowhere without adding something new of value to it. We don't have a product that our country exclusively offers that makes enough money to offset that. We don't have that. Therefore, there is no value. It decreases the value of each individual unit. And by unit, I mean dollar. And the fact is, they didn't literally print money in paper form. What they did was they just produced the digital numbers added into checking accounts and whatnot. But even that, by just simply where the excess is and where it can be deleted, just delete that out after settling a new budget so that this waste, fraud, and abuse is not used. Instead of continually borrowing that money, operate within what we have without borrowing. You can delete excess if possible. That would inflate the currency internally, or deflate the currency. It will raise the value of each share by deleting the excess, what you can almost think of as a counterfeit, because it's the exact same thing as counterfeiting, except it's government-sponsored counterfeiting. There are no bills for it. That's why sending everybody a check's a bad idea. Everyone gets it. Too many people are going to try and take out too much cash. They're going to run out of currency. It'll all be out in the wind, as it were. Banks will be like, I don't know, I can give you a cashier's check. I can do a digital transfer account to account, but I can't give you cash for it. Or they'd have to introduce a federal government digital currency for these things. May or may not be a good thing. I guess keeping your taxes on a separate system could have some sense to it, but I just have bad feeling about future abuse in the wrong hands. So anyways, so much going on. But I have no reason to think from any of the things that have come out and been done so far that these people don't know what they're doing. That these concerns, Elon is unique. That guy is, among all the other stuff they say about him, he's kind of on spectrum. He's socially awkward a bit, even though he's radically successful. What this means is sometimes you're just going to have to put your foot in your mouth. That happens. So mentioning a Doge dividend is a real foot in the mouth moment. Shouldn't have happened. That's too bad. That guy's a due for saying it. I think there are people that will realize that there are other ways that we can better reduce inflation and improve the government function and economy. And it's like something that benefits everyone all at the same time in all levels. How can you say no to that when it actually works? You have to isolate some of that waste and just delete it. Stop printing the money, delete it, stop doing it, and don't even request a replacement amount for next year on that chunk. Get it down. And if you can't do that, then use whatever you have and what you're, don't keep getting more, but use what you've got that you saved if you got coffers anywhere for it, and throw that back at the debt and reduce the national debt. That's the only other thing we can do that we really need to do is we need to reduce the debt and we need to eliminate the waste and stop print new currency to cover it. If we can't do it with what we've got, then obviously we've got a problem that needs to be looked at. I think that enough cuts can be made in places that aren't entitlements to people that deserve them. In fact, that's the other thing that I wanted to mention before ending this video and continuing on about watching what I'm watching here about the guy with the island and the plane, is that these people have done everything they've said they were going to do, and they're doing it in a smart way, which means that this release is also being done in a smart way because obviously there are consequences. There could very well be just a string of very high-profile, questionable deaths with no real answers ever given. It's up to you to decide. So, moving forward, I think we're stepping up a notch on that great awakening kind of thing. Don't be surprised by anything that you see, but also with big news stories, give it a couple of days to air out before you really make any judgments about anything. Don't get up in arms. Don't take direct, immediate action. Give it 48 hours, 36 at the least. Give it a couple days. This stuff's going to come out. Then phase 2 is going to come out. It's going to be like the Twitter files. Actually, very, very revelatory and important information about how things were being done, and we're continuing to see it. And eventually, the media is not going to be able to keep everyone in control about it. And all of us who are in our various different stages and phases of control or waking up or whatever are all going to be able to recognize what has been done to all of us and be able to address it and hopefully cope with it and move forward after that. But this is just the start. Things are getting good. And I, at this time, have great faith in the process and the people doing it. They haven't shown a reason that they would fuck it up yet. So don't expect them to fuck it up now. And if they do fuck it up, expect the possibility that they've got a backup on themselves or whatever, that it's all good. Totem bonus in the Latin.